What brand comes to mind when I say FDA scandals, data breaches, cultural mocking, rusty eyeshadow palettes, and literal scams? Yeah, it could only be Lime Crime. And I am so ready to finally get into this doozy of a story, so start cleaning your apartment, do your skincare routine, grab a drink, do what you gotta do, because this is gonna be a long one. And thank you to all of you who participated in my TikTok poll about posting this video on YouTube or TikTok. Here we are. Also, all of this is alleged and it's actually from a dream I had. I'm not claiming that this stuff is true, okay? This is for fun. This is a creative writing exercise. Just wanted to give that little disclaimer in case a litigious founder came across this video, okay? Anyway, let me just set the scene for you because we are going all the way back to the early 2000s with this one. Excuse me. Stop. You cannot rip apart my blanket. Sorry about that. Dog parenthood, am I right? In 2003-2004, Xenia Voratova, now known online as Deere, was kind of like an influencer before we called them influencers. She had a pretty decent following on LiveJournal, if you remember that website. Personally, I was a Zanga girl. I love doing those little surveys. Anyway, she took this following and started a fashion line in 2003, later known as Lime Crime. She sold these handmade, punky, frilly, skulls and lace kind of pieces. It was very much of the time, and her followers ate it up for a very short amount of time because it wasn't long before Deere found herself in her very first internet scandal. And this friendship falling out is one that would follow her throughout her Lime Crime career. As Lime Crime was finding success on eBay, another shop called Shrinkle was gaining popularity on the same platform. As budding fashion brand founders, Shrinkle's Amy Doan and Deere became online buddies. They even invited other eBay designers to join them in a LiveJournal community called Little Big Girls. But people who followed both accounts started noticing that whenever Shrinkle posted a new piece, Lime Crime wasn't far behind with a very similar version. And what's more, within Little Big Girls, Doe was causing a lot of drama. She would send an email out to the members asking to remove a certain designer for whatever reason, only for them to discover that she'd actually already kicked out that person. If you disagreed with her or she didn't like your designs, you were out, regardless of how the other members felt about it. Now, this is just kind of chisme, but it kept popping up over and over again, so I feel like it might have a little bit of truth to it. I will obviously share it with you. Word through the grapevine is that Doe was also encouraging members of Little Big Girls to do some unsavory business practices. For example, maybe creating fake eBay accounts and bidding on each other's items. This would artificially lift the price of that item before normal everyday people could buy it. Again, just circulating through the rumor mill with that one. Between her pretty blatant copying and ill-managed group, Doe's friendship with Amy came to a pretty quick end. Another designer in Little Big Girls wrote a blog post about Doe's fucked up tactics, and Amy commented in agreement. But this would not be the last time that these ex-friends encountered each other, not by a long shot. Now, Lime Crime's eBay shop was kind of in a downward spiral. She sold a dress that had been hemmed with duct tape and started shipping out plastic children's sunglasses for $40 a pop. When buyers complained, she refused to give out refunds because why wouldn't you ask beforehand if the dress had been hemmed with duct tape and if the sunglasses were for kids? Hello, dumbasses. Some of her LiveJournal fans caught wind of these indiscretions and jumped ship, but those who remained got to witness Doe's next scandalous era, the animal rights era. Doe started posting more and more about this cause despite a little bit of confusion from her followers. Doe had sold fur items and owned a lot of fur herself, so it seemed a little bit out of character for her to give a fuck about animals. But Doe insisted that she was no longer buying fur and had changed her ways. Now she was fundraising for an animal shelter. The deal was that she would raffle off this beautiful jewelry box to one lucky winner who donated via PayPal, and hundreds of dollars flew in to support the cause. Eventually, her LiveJournal fans started asking, which shelter is this money going to, and when are you going to announce the winner of the raffle, which I think are pretty valid questions. But their comments started disappearing, and eventually the raffle disappeared too. Doe went off on her honeymoon, leaving the raffle participants wondering where the hell their money was actually gonna go. First, she claimed the money was going to the Brooklyn shelter, and then once people realized that didn't exist, she started a new raffle for Canadian Pet Rescue. Participants were able to contact PayPal, who had no idea that this charity raffle was even going on, and they closed her account. No word on if anyone got their money back or if their money just funded Doe's honeymoon, but regardless, if any sense of trust had been built in her short time online, Doe had already broken it multiple times before even starting the beauty brand that we all know. We are not even to lime crime makeup yet, and we already have plagiarism and scams. This is not good. Oh, and we also have her threatening to sue a 13-year-old girl. After a little stint in music, it was time for Doe to venture into the beauty space. Now we're jumping forward to 2008, and at this point, the beauty industry is filled to the brim with neutrals. Nude lipsticks, brown eyeshadows, nothing super crazy. It was very rare to find a lime green foil eyeshadow or a bright purple lipstick. You had to go to brands like Kryolan for that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was literally 12 at this time, but I feel like Kryolan wasn't really available in a lot of retailers, right? The point is that Doe felt like there was a hole in the market, one that she seeked to fill with her new improved brand, Lime Crime. And this foray into the beauty industry wasn't entirely surprising coming from her. She often posted these bright, colorful makeup looks on her live journal that coincided with her different hair colors and outfits. Lime Crime released eyeshadows, glitters, brushes, a whole collection of products that, for the most part, fell into the $15 to $25 range. With its wild colors and whimsical marketing, the brand took off online. Doe continued to post makeup tutorials, and Lime Crime got a ton of press. But the following year, rumors started circulating throughout the indie makeup space about private labeling. Now, private labeling isn't that uncommon in any industry, really. Makeup brands, furniture, clothing, a lot of them will buy products wholesale, put it in pretty packaging, and mark up the price. But this felt a little different. A wholesaler called TKB Trading essentially sells ingredients for eyeshadows, lip glosses, and so on. So a brand can buy flavoring oils for lip glosses, a gloss base, dyed micas, stuff like that. My understanding, as someone who does not work in the beauty industry whatsoever, is that brands might buy these wholesale ingredients and then add additional ingredients to them to make the shadows stick better, improve the formula, things like that. Typically, you're not going to see an eyeshadow palette with mica, titanium dioxide, and iron oxide as the only ingredients, right? They're going to add other shit to make the product better. Whether that's lessening the fallout, making it more blendable, whatever. Well, beauty bloggers at the time started getting a little suspicious that small brands like Lime Crime were private labeling straight up ingredients from TKB. And this was seemingly proven on a blog called Lipsticks and Lightsabers. I totally miss the alliterative blog names like that, like where is Cupcakes and Cashmere? Anyway, the blogger Anastasia bought a bunch of micas from TKB and swatched them next to Lime Crime products, and the swatches were identical, and the ingredients were too. Lime Crime's magic dusts only had three: titanium dioxide, iron oxide, and tin oxide. Shady fucking boots. When Lipsticks and Lightsabers posted this, it spread like wildfire, and Doe had no choice but to address the noise. At first, she claims that TKB ripped off Lime Crime, but when people point out that the shades in question were on TKB's website before Lime Crime even existed, she decides to do what she does best: DIY. She shares a video of herself making an eyeshadow, and unfortunately, I could not track down this video for the life of me. I looked on the Wayback Machine, I tried to see if people reposted it, there was nothing. It was very disappointing. But we have to remember, this is very, very early in the social media game as we know it, so there really aren't a ton of receipts, period. This is just a summary of the video from Lipsticks and Lightsabers. She essentially was on there without a mask or gloves, just mixing blacks and blues together without any sort of rhyme or reason. Despite claiming to make these eyeshadow colors herself, she didn't really know the formula, so she was just mixing wholesale micas together until she got a result that was vaguely similar to the product. According to Doe, she mixed all of her eyeshadow samples this way before sending them off to the lab so that they could recreate them for her customers. Again, no recipe, no rhyme, no reason, just mixing random shit together. Obviously, this makes no sense, even to a layman like myself. Nobody believed her, and the negativity just kept rolling in. Eventually, Doe posted another video discussing how the negativity was getting to her. The bully-filled beauty community had turned on her with lies, and it hurt her deeply. She removed any claims from the website that she personally created these colors herself and tried her best to move on. But the drama was compounded by a litany of negative reviews that were rolling in about Lime Crime products. Beauty bloggers were posting left and right, and even publications that talked about Lime Crime had messy-ass comment sections. The Examiner posted an interview with Doe Deere, and the feedback was harsh. For example, one commenter said that the Lime Crime website actually showed the weight of the jars next to each product instead of the weight of the contents. So people were buying these products thinking that they were getting more than they actually were. People commented about the lack of diversity in Lime Crime's marketing, more on that later. You even had people who knew Doe Deere from her eBay and animal shelter fundraising days chiming in. At one point, a commenter named Doe, who Doe claimed wasn't her, replied to the haters haters with a crazy-ass message calling them poor idiots. But it's one thing to comment back to your haters and a whole nother thing to come for them legally. One negative review in particular pushed Doe over the edge. Les Gothique was a blog ran by a girl named Gray, and her review of Lime Crime was low-key scathing. It was very honest, but it was not good. What I found very interesting about this review is that she said the lipstick she ordered smelled exactly like a MAC lipstick. Apparently, this is done intentionally to make items feel more familiar to the customer. I just found that very interesting. Anyway, she came for Lime Crime and Doe Deere so hard that Doe emailed her asking her to take down the review and any mention of the brand from her website. She was to replace them with an apology. Or else. I'm sorry, but signing off an email with "guide yourself accordingly" is crazy. Gray is terrified of this company taking legal action against her, so she does what they say. She takes down every single Lime Crime post and replaces it with a seemingly genuine apology. She even personally apologizes to Doe for hurting her feelings. But I guess she also posted a snippet of Doe's email, which ended up pissing her off even more. Doe emailed again, demanding a new apology filled with legalese and bullshit, and Gray did it because she was scared. Oh, this is just one instance of Doe coming after people who left negative reviews. There was the beloved and respected Temptalia. Temptalia was a makeup blog that was extremely honest. To this day, you can find reviews and swatches for all kinds of products and compare them. Temptalia's post about Lime Crime's lipsticks is actually still up because our girl stands on business, and she gave them a C- rating. While she wrote that the lipsticks were very pigmented and wonderfully scented, they required a lip liner. Some were really drying, and let's just say the packaging was not for everyone. Doe ends up commenting on the post and thanking her for her review while noting that there are tons of people who love the lipsticks. But if you don't, that's what customer service and a great return policy are for. Kinda weird to comment on someone's review, but at least her comment was nice, right? Well, she followed up her comment with an email to her futurettes, aka Lime Crime's kind of street team, asking them to email Temptalia's personal email and let her know how wrong her review was. Oh, but be polite. Also, that customer service and return policy she mentioned earlier, yeah, there was no way that you were getting your money back from Lime Crime unless you disputed the charge with your bank. There was no return policy. Temptalia got a bunch of dumb emails and said that she would never be reviewing Lime Crime's products again. The brand's reputation was fully going to shit, even when she denied ever coming after any negative reviews because she thought that she could play everyone like the poor idiots she thought they were. And in doing so, an opportunity arose for competitors to get their products in the hands of disgruntled Lime Crime customers. Ergo Sugarpill Cosmetics, a bright, bubbly brand funded by former Shrinkles owner and Little Big Girls member Amy Doan. And while Doe's over here publicly congratulating Amy for her new brand, the comment section underneath a Lime Crime article is going wild with accusations. An anonymous commenter posted a picture of Sugarpill's eyeshadow next to Wholesale Shadows, essentially accusing Sugarpill of private labeling. Pretty interesting, we were just talking about Lime Crime being accused of private labeling the year before, and now Sugarpill is being accused of the same thing? Another anonymous commenter decides to do some digging. They look at the metadata on the Sugarpill wholesaler photo and find that it was taken by a Samsung VLUU L77. And weirdly enough, whoever took the photo didn't update the date and time on their camera because it said that the photo was taken in January 2027 even though it was only February 2010. On a hunch, they ventured over to Doe Deere's Flickr account. Y'all remember Flickr? I mean, it's still around, but in 2010, it was everything. Anyway, when they pulled the metadata on one of Doe's photos, they see that it was taken by a Samsung VLUU L77. And the date? January 2027. This anonymous commenter went on to work for the FBI. Okay, I don't know that, but they should have. What are the chances that these two separate people both had the dates on their cameras set to 17 years in the future? And they had the same camera in general. On top of that, the Flickr account that hosted the Sugarpill private labeling proof was called Princess Moth, a name that matched a makeup tutorial that Doe Deere had posted a few years back. Coincidence? This FBI agent didn't seem to think so. Xenia, you've been caught out. Despite the slander attempt, Sugarpill Cosmetics really started taking off. It was a little pricey, but people really loved the color options, the quality, and the brand's commitment to using vegan ingredients. And Lime Crime continued to make moves that were reminiscent of the eBay days. What I mean by that is that they copied Sugarpill relentlessly. Sugarpill comes out with a palette, Lime Crime comes out with the same colors. Sugarpill's vegan, Lime Crime's vegan too, despite using beeswax and carmine. But why do vegans give a shit about beeswax anyway? Sugarpill does a contest with Curly? Lime Crime collabs with Curly. It was like Amy Doan could not escape her former friend, and neither could controversy. At the top of 2012, Lime Crime started promoting a palette called Chinadoll. Its imagery featured former MySpace celebrity Hannah Beth in what appeared to be a Japanese kimono, and I gotta read this caption. "Don't let her milky skin, pouty mouth, and flushed cheeks fool you. Underneath that poised facade, there lies a heart of a tigress." So obviously a lot of people were really confused and pissed off. A blogger called Portrait of My put it all together really well and questioned why Lime Crime didn't just hire a Chinese model. Why not have your model actually wear Chinese clothing? My called it a watered down stereotype of Chinese advertisements and culture, not an homage to them. Doe actually reached out to My and asked for her email so she could send over a few questions about her blog post. It kind of seemed like she might actually be willing to hear her out and then formulate a public response accordingly. But after Mai sent over her email, she never heard from Doe. Eventually, Mai reached out via email herself, and Doe got back to her and basically just said, never mind. In the meantime, Lime Crime's social media accounts were arguing with people like the iconic journalist and my biggest inspiration in life, Lisa Ling. How dare you? Why did whoever was running the Lime Crime Twitter account, I'm not gonna say it was Doe because I don't know that, why did they ask Lisa Ling if she was equally as offended about Aladdin? I mean, I'm speechless. Doe also shared a blog post addressing some FAQs, and she started it out with the Jaclyn Hill lipstick gate kind of thing. A lot of y'all love this, but for the very small number of people who didn't, no stray intended for Jaclyn there, but she did do the same thing. Go watch my lipstick gate video. Anyway, in this blog post, Doe said that Chinadoll wasn't supposed to authentically portray Chinese life or culture. After all, she's a makeup artist, not a historian. They worked with Hannah Beth because Chinadoll wasn't meant to be specifically a Chinese person. She could be anyone, she's just a character. Plus, cultural appropriation is dumb anyway. What do you mean you can't sing the blues or release a rap album unless you're black? You can't cosplay as your favorite anime character if you're not Japanese? We would have never gotten Mozart's March alla Turca with this attitude. So people boycotted after this. There were definitely a lot of people who were unhappy with Lime Crime because of this whole situation, but what do we know by now about canceling brands and people? If they just ignore it and keep going, it goes away. And this is what Lime Crime continued to do every 6 months when they had a new scandal. Honestly, if we can take a little life lesson away from this, it's that persistence is key to survival. At the end of the day, makeup lovers still liked Lime Crime despite the products just being wholesale ingredients without anything added, despite copying Sugarpill, despite mocking Chinese culture, and so on. The brand was stocked at retailers like Urban Outfitters and Nasty Gal, and e-com sales were at an all-time high. This was despite boycotts at beauty conferences like IMATS, the brand's removal from Sephora, and an ongoing social media campaign to #boycott Lime Crime. By late 2014, customers were spending money left and right on that damn website. Little did they know they were putting their personal information in jeopardy by doing so. Between October 2014 and February 2015, Lime Crime's SSL certificate, which basically just encrypts data and prevents hackers from getting in, was expired, leaving the website very vulnerable to various attacks. Over the course of those 4 months, Lime Crime customer names, credit card information, addresses, so much information was taken. People reported charges of thousands of dollars on their credit cards for overseas purchases. So people were buying a $15 lipstick and then losing hundreds to thousands of dollars. It was horrible, and Lime Crime refused to acknowledge any sort of issue. Anyone who commented on their socials about mysterious charges after purchasing from the Lime Crime website got their comments deleted, and if they kept commenting, they got blocked. It wasn't until February that Lime Crime shared on their socials and sent out physical letters and emails admitting that there was a breach. And customers were really pissed off, rightfully so. Why did it take so long for them to stop blocking breach victims and actually take accountability? What was being done to make this right for all of these people that lost their money? A couple years later, a class action lawsuit was settled, and Lime Crime ended up paying out $110,000. That $110,000 was divided by a bunch of people, and after lawyers' fees and all of that, each person got about $44. Obviously, this is far less than many of them were robbed of, but not to worry, they also got a 15% off coupon to shop on the Lime Crime website should they want their information stolen again. Deere posted that much like a restaurant after a food poisoning scare, the Lime Crime website was now the safest it had ever been. Interesting comparison. At this point, the criticism of Lime Crime was starting to pile up, with more and more popular beauty influencers speaking out against the brand. Jeffree Star dedicated an Instagram post to calling out Lime Crime for tweeting about him back in 2010. According to Jeffree, Deere was delusional and psychologically disturbed. If he weren't busy with other obligations, he would slap her upside the head. Kathleen Lights, who got $600 stolen from her from the Lime Crime data breach, actually said that the data breach wasn't really the straw that broke the camel's back for her. After all, websites get hacked all the time. But despite supporting Lime Crime in the past, she wasn't going to be buying any more of their products for, well, everything else they'd ever done.
Too many weird things and too many sketchy things have happened with that company for me to sit here and waste my good, hard-earned money on them, and I won't anymore. And also, I feel like this security breach was a huge karma to them, because now is when people are starting to Google them and look into them a lot more and seeing like all this like crazy crap that Lime Crime that's happening with them.
It was like things couldn't possibly get worse for Lime Crime or Deere, but if you've gotten anything out of this long-ass video, it's that every few months a new scandal is popping up for them. Anytime you thought it couldn't get worse, it did. With increased eyes on Lime Crime and Deere, a really disturbing blog post of hers started making the rounds again. It wasn't like this was entirely new, because people definitely knew about this blog post long before the data breach, but it was really amplified at this time. Back in the 2000s, Deere had dressed up as Hitler for Halloween, and she shared it to her blog proudly in this bad Halloween costumes post like it was this hilariously offensive thing. In the blog post, Doe said that she chose this costume to see how much she could get away with in New York City. She also gave herself the award for most offensive costume. She was aware of what she was doing. To this day, I feel like the chinadoll palette, the data breach, and this blog post are like the top 3 most detrimental scandals to Lime Crime. And Doe/Lime Crime didn't address this blog post for over a decade. The first response I found to this was an Instagram live that Doe posted in 2018, and in the live, she admits to never mentioning this before.
What I want to talk to you about is something that I never talked about in like 12 years.
While also saying that she's already apologized for it several times.
Why didn't you apologize for this earlier? And the truth is that I did. Many times on many social medias.
I don't know. The point is that she's sorry for it now, and her intention was to mock and belittle this person, not celebrate them. Doe is Jewish and grew up in Russia, so her family carries a lot of trauma from World War II, and she would never align herself with that person or that ideology whatsoever. This all stemmed from a misunderstanding on her part of what American Halloween entailed, as well as a well-intentioned idea taken out of context by various publications. And then she gave everyone a tour of her kitchen, so we definitely ended that live on a high note. Jumping back in the timeline post-data breach, I would be remiss if we didn't get into the FDA of it all. Later in 2015, a post popped up in the makeup addiction subreddit, and I want to read the title. Has anyone contacted Lime Crime regarding Cashmere's use of ferrocyanide and requested a refund? This person was asking because they had recently purchased 2 Velveteen liquid lipsticks, and the lipsticks had an ingredient in them that wasn't approved for lip products in the US. Ferrocyanide, aka Prussian blue, was a really common ingredient used in cosmetics, especially eyeshadows. It's a really pretty dark blue color, but you can't use it in lip products because people could eat it. So if this is in the ingredients list, that's a pretty big problem, and people started complaining to Lime Crime via email and social media comments. There was a post on the Boycott Lime Crime Instagram page noting that this ingredient was causing ulcer-like sores on people's lips. It was truly heinous. Lime Crime wrote every single person back, apologized, and offered refunds. Just kidding, they ignored them. Why would they be actually offering customer service when they'd never done that before? Once again, if you brought this up in their comment section, you're comment would be deleted expeditiously, and you would be blocked if you tried to comment again. If this ingredient really was in these lipsticks and was causing harm, it had to be reported, so they went to the FDA. 6 customers within a 2-month period submitted complaints, and now the FDA was responding publicly with a warning letter to Lime Crime. In the letter, they said that Lime Crime's product label had ferric, ferrocyanide, and ultramarines, so they were assuming that these ingredients were in products that they weren't supposed to be in. And even if the ingredients weren't actually in the liquid lipsticks, it's still a problem because your product label is wrong. So fix the problem and let us know what you're doing to rectify this within 15 days, or we are coming for you legally. Y'all, Lime Crime got this warning letter, and once again, they did not inform their customers. They did stop deleting comments, and they would address the person who asked the question, but they never sent out any emails or letters telling people to stop buying the lipsticks in question. There was no recall notice, nothing. It took 4 months for Lime Crime to speak about the FDA warning letter in any sort of official capacity. They did this by sharing the FDA's closeout letter on their website and essentially just saying, "We fixed the labels." And then they launched a new lip color, ironically a bright blue, just a few days later. Classic. They had fixed that label, but they had done nothing to fix the shitty quality of their products. And unfortunately, the FDA would be needed once again the following year. In late 2016, complaints started popping up on social media about Lime Crime's superfoil eyeshadows having brownish, blackish bubbles popping up through the product. When they hit pan, there were brown marks all over it. It looked like it was rust and mold. I mean, it still looks like it was rust and mold, right? And how was Lime Crime explaining this to customers? Oh, it's the glycerin in the product that's creating concentrated pigment bubbles, and the product is completely safe to use. The problem with their response is that glycerin is an ingredient that draws in moisture to the product, and this product is meant to be activated with water. So while I'm sure many people would load up the product on their brush and then spray the brush with water, it's possible that people were spraying water directly into the pan. So listen, I'm no cosmetic chemist or anything, but to me it sounds like there's some double watering happening in this tin pan within a closed compact. That sounds like a breeding ground for mold and rust, not pigment bubbles. In fact, Beauty Investigator shared this DM from a follower who had their brother conduct a little experiment with Iron X. Iron X turns rust into this purplish color, and lo and behold, surrounded by its control group, the superfoil lit up like Barney? It was purple. But despite this unofficial social media science experiment, Lime Crime insisted that they had done their own tests and couldn't find any sort of rust or mold in the superfoils. This was glycerin dew, as they called it, and it was completely harmless. And here we finally are, the beginning of the end. Fate has brought us all together right here under the shimmering disco ball. Because once we start getting into the late 2010s, Deere starts to kind of disappear from Lime Crime. She hired a woman named Kim Walls to take more control of the brand, and then shortly thereafter, Lime Crime was purchased by a private equity firm called 10gram, who promptly fired Kim Walls. 10gram is pretty huge. They own other companies like Tone It Up and Algenist, and they felt like it was time to really take over Lime Crime for Deere so she could stay as far away as fucking possible. The Lime Crime hate pages could rest at last, or so we thought. Doe remained on the board, continued to give input on products, and presumably was profiting from Lime Crime. This was a big problem because why would you want someone you hate to continue taking your money? This is like when everyone needed 100% confirmation that Kat Von D no longer had anything to do with KVD Beauty. And even now, I know she has nothing to do with it, but I still have not bought anything from there. I don't know why. Her vibe remains. It wasn't until 2020 that Lime Crime finally announced Deere would be stepping down from the board to make way for BIPOC members. A pretty noble act, but did beauty consumers feel better about Lime Crime now that Deere had stepped down? Not really. They didn't even believe that her stepping down from the board meant that she was no longer profiting. Nothing Lime Crime could ever do would ever be enough to win back their original Lime Crime customers. The bridge had been burned, jackhammered, and crumbled to smithereens with dynamite. Okay, it was over. It looks like recently they released a Sonic the Hedgehog collection. They made it into Sally Beauty, and if you go on their website now, a lot of the products are at a major discount. Some are 50% off, others are 75% off. On their socials, they seem to be into hair dye a lot more than makeup now. I don't know. The point is that Lime Crime was was a hot mess even back in the 2000s when it was a twinkle in Doe Deere's eye. And it continued to be a mess for the rest of its existence with her at the helm. After leaving Lime Crime, Doe started another business called Poppy Angeloff that sold clothing, accessories, teacups. As of last year, that business has also gone under, but Doe is still pretty active on her socials. But I truly think that Lime Crime is the most controversial company that the beauty industry has experienced in this new social media era, okay? Tarte has nothing on Lime Crime, and that's saying a lot. And as shocking as all these scandals were, what really shakes me to my core is that this brand continued to exist for an entire decade with all of this shit going down all the time. No change in ownership, no major rebrand, just hot fucking mess 24/7. I'm surprised it didn't go out of business at any point during those 10 years, but you know what? If your product is good, if they like your marketing, and if you go after a younger audience that maybe wasn't online to see your shit show in the 2000s, your company can survive. I need to know if y'all were ever Lime Crime people. Like, I'm very boring with my makeup, so I never got into it, but I'm so curious. I know that it was super popular, and I want to know where you were when all of these controversies were going down. Like, was there one in particular that pushed you over the edge to stop supporting them? Did you keep supporting them despite the drama? Please spill. This is a judgment-free zone, except for when it comes to Lime Crime itself. I'm gonna judge a lot there, but I'm not gonna judge you. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like internet history, pop culture, and reality TV, I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post videos every week, usually at least a recap of sorts of all of the niche internet and pop culture news of the week. So if you are into that, definitely subscribe. You can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram. This was a really long one. I'm gonna put on my audiobook and go for a walk. I'll see you later.